This is the third week in a row that we've been listening to sections of the Sermon on the Mount. Do you guys remember how the Sermon on the Mount begins? 2 weeks ago, we heard the Beatitudes. And just last week, we heard Jesus encouraging each one of us to be salt and light. Today's gospel was long. And Jesus spoke about multiple things. But I'm just going to choose one phrase from it that I want to share with you a reflection on. In today's gospel, there's a place where Jesus says, if your righteousness is not more than the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will not enter into the kingdom of heaven. And I love this because Jesus is so tender with everyone. But he's tender with the Pharisees in a different way. So I was wondering, what is it about the Pharisees that if we're like them, we won't enter into the kingdom? So there were two things about the Pharisees that I want to share with you. And I think that today can be a good examination of conscience to see if there's a little bit of the Pharisees and scribes within us. The first thing about the Pharisees is that for them, of utmost importance was to appear to be righteous and just before others. They wanted everyone else to think of them that they were holy. That was the most important and crucial thing for them. We want to be sure that our reputation is immaculate and everybody thinks very, very, very highly of me. And everything that they do was a way to show off their own righteousness. And this made me think about an experience that I had many years ago when I was recently ordained a priest. I had an aunt who was recovering from an addiction, and she was in a recovery center. So she asked me, she said, "Dear nephew, you're just ordained a priest. My sisters in recovery would be so grateful to have you come as a priest there." So I said, "Sure, I'll go." And I was very intimidated because, it was just me with like 20 ladies. And then we sat down, and each of the ladies started introducing themselves. And they said, "My name is X. This is my addiction." And then the next person said, "My name is X. This is my addiction." And why am I bringing this up? Because that was the day that I was in a place where I felt I've never been among more sincere people than today. Because normally, we tend to be like the Pharisees, and we want to present ourselves with the best face towards others. We want everyone to know all the good things about us. But the people that are in recovery have an advantage over us, and it is that they lead with their weakness. And they start by saying, "This is where I am weakest." But think about this. I think that every time that we come to Mass, we do a confession of our own sinfulness. And the first thing that we do is we introduce ourselves and we say, "I confess to Almighty God that I'm a sinner." But I'm just wondering, is it true for us that when we come to Mass and we do the act of contrition, we're saying, "You know what? I haven't got it all together. I'm not holy. I'm a sinner." And I encourage you, every time that we come to Mass, let's remember that we're not supposed to be like the Pharisees. But on the contrary, we should be a little bit more like those addicts, that they start by saying, "I'm in need. I'm in need." And that's why Jesus doesn't like the Pharisees. Because they're very self-sufficient. And they're very concerned with everyone thinking that they're saints. But the church gave us the formula, because when we start the Mass, we say, "I'm not a saint. I'm a sinner. Look at me. I'm a sinner just like you. Perhaps worse." What's the other thing about the Pharisees that Jesus doesn't like? And this is very important to understand. The Pharisees felt that they were just because they fulfilled all the commandments. Like they marked all the checkboxes. Every checkbox, they got it right. And look at this. Because they did everything, they felt they were just. But for us, it should be different. You know why? Because what should bring us to Mass shouldn't be the fact that we want to say, I completed everything, I'm doing well, I'm a righteous person. What should bring us to Mass is the fact that we're in need. The fact that we need Mass. That we can't do it without Mass. So let me ask you this question. In your heart, who do you look more like? Is it true that sometimes you're like, well, I got to go to Mass because I have to be righteous before God? Or is it true that you go to Mass because you say, I need it? Because I know that if I don't feed from the Word and the body, I'm done. I'm done. I want to share with you a story about someone who was in need for the Eucharist. Back in the 4th century, in the north of Africa, where now you would find Tunis. Is that how you say it in English? Tunis? There was a group of 49 Christians, Catholics. And the emperor had said that it was unlawful for people to gather for Mass. And the place where this happened, in the north of Africa, 49 Christians were discovered on a Sunday Mass. And they took them in for interrogation. And they asked them, we told you you could not gather for Mass. Why are you disobeying the orders of the emperor? And perhaps many of you have heard their answer. I'm going to say it in Latin because it sounds more cool that way. Sine Dominico non possum. You know Latin, right? They were saying, without the Sunday, we can't do it. Without the Sunday, we can't do it. So let me ask you a question, brothers. Those martyrs, did they go to Mass because they wanted to fulfill an obligation to feel righteous, or did they go to Mass because they thought it was a need for them? Certainly, they thought it was a need for them. So today, brothers and sisters, why is Jesus harsh on the Pharisees and scribes? Because they think they're self-sufficient. Because they want others to think of them that they're just and saints. And because they do all the things so that they can say before God, Lord, look, I'm immaculate. But remember what Pope Francis said. Pope Francis said, the Eucharist is not a prize for the just. The Eucharist is a remedy for the sick. So today, brothers and sisters, my encouragement for you, look at your own heart. Is being a Catholic the need to fulfill obligations so that you feel righteous before God? Or is everything about your faith a sense of urgency because you can't do it without it? Today, when you come for communion, my encouragement, don't think of it as just something that I have to do, but see yourself as a pilgrim or as a beggar in need of your own nourishment for the week.